me to participate, to give a kind of performance and or lecture. He did it on the weekend of the Poor Farm Experiment in the beginning of August. So that project was kind of, I don't want to say it was coming to a close because it's ongoing, but anyways, the push to get the Poor Farm going was concluding. People were departing. And we were on our way, Brad and I were on our way to Hamburg. There's a project there, a project we were invited to participate in called the Subvision. And it was a collection of approximately 40 artist initiatives from all over the world. So I had great hopes for all the time, I can even say within the last, a couple weeks, constantly being asked to give language to goals for the suburban and or the poor farm is driving me nuts. I mean, it's becoming absurd in terms of my inability to answer that question and my inability to not want to answer, or my ability to just choosing not to answer. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how utterly disappointed the Hamburg experience was, because where the hope was that it was going to answer these questions that Chicago perennially wrestles with its, I don't want to say alternative spaces, but artist-run spaces or independent spaces, that it was going to open up, contextualize these spaces. They came from South Africa, they came from Lebanon, Moscow, Finland, all over the world. Detroit was the only other one from the States outside of the suburban. So really quite excited, looking forward to how this discussion was going to unfold. Like I said, terribly disappointing, terribly familiar, terribly predictable. It's the same conversation I have with the folks at Temporary Services, same conversation I have with Incubate. It's the same thing, folks. So I'm going to walk you through this, and I'm sorry, I couldn't. I feel obligated to work through this, and they should have. All right. So, anyways, a little bit about the project. I came to know Hamburg quite well. I liked it. It was terrific. We were funded by the German state. That was a lovely thing to be brought over and to be given things like honorariums and hotels and flights and budgets and so forth. That's always remarkable. And the suburban, of course, is complete at that. Hamburg is a huge port city, one of the biggest in Germany. It's on the Elbe, of the Elbe River. And Hamburg right now, Hafen City basically means harbor city, bombed out in the war, completely being rebuilt, and star architects from all over the world are vying for commission. So Hamburg is literally selling these flats, these kind of abandoned bits along the river to commercial and private owners to build everything from condos to businesses and so forth. But it's going to be, I have to tell you, it's going to be a great site for contemporary architecture. I mean, people will go there just for examples of contemporary architecture. And what you see here is one of these, I mean, it's, complicated layout, geography of piers and so forth. And this land here is those shipping containers. That's Subvision. That's where the project was. And you can see these, you see everything from boats to cranes and so forth going on. Okay, so we're walking in, and what happened, it's a place called Hamburg Architecture Workshop, was responsible for the laying out, the proportions, the actual selecting of colors of these shipping containers. And they're proportioned very differently. Maybe you see them on occasion on trains. They're small, it's a small container, it's not the kind of that you see on trucks. And then they also created these large towers, and that large cube that you see is the theater. So the originator of Subvision thought of this as kind of breaking down in three ways. Academic, they would involve the academy. Daniel Richter's students were all involved in setting forth and helping us out. We were all assigned as students. Theater, right, so discourse. The idea that artists were there for the full run of the show, it's a 2-week show and artists were actually there and things were transforming was very important. And then the site itself, the architecture of the site. The way it was laid out, the towers justified they marked where canteens were, toilets and so forth. But there was huge justification for hierarchy. They were a little uncertain about these kind of vertical towers being raised, and that leads into a project that we ended up doing. So anyways, you get a sense, everybody who was invited, each initiative got a total of 4 containers. One of the containers was stacked in another, which people weren't allowed to go into, but some of the initiatives used it as a video screening place. So we ended up being number 14, so we had the blue, the green, and the red in the back. Okay, so this is listening to the people from Moscow still evoke means of production, and odor circle means of production, and then this kind of continuous back and forth, and this argument with somebody from the Czech Republic who runs the space. But I'm going to take a moment and read a handful of things that were said by some of these initiatives in terms of defining and I'm going to call it an off space, and I think it's kind of a good idea. I like it better than artist initiatives. So in Germany particularly, and it's kind of moving through Europe, artist-run spaces or alternative or artist initiatives are referred to as off spaces. And that's borrowed from Phil in terms of what is off screen. So I like that a lot. Okay. At the beginning, there's a passion for art and the setting something in motion, if that makes sense. A voice from the off is a voice outside of the visible image, meaning that the voice is not connected to a person shown in speaking in the pictures. We are so familiar with voices from the off that the weirdness of the matter is hardly noticed. The off is a virtual, artificial space, a strange anywhere. All right, I agree. Here it is allowed, or even demanded, to present what is unexpected, out of line, or hard to handle, art forms, which evade the character of a commodity without being punished by the mainstream or being deviant. The more lurid, funny, and unusual, the more attention the off space and what is shown in it will arouse. The true artist-run space should not imitate the mediocre white cube resemblance, but should rather try to push the boundaries of art presentation beyond its present limits. While the off space of the 1980s still manifested a complete rejection of anything institutional, the present off spaces play a role in the established art system as well. They position themselves at art fairs and have no inhibitions to sharpen their profile alongside commercial galleries, like, for instance, the last Kunst Zurich in November 2004, in which the fair's directors invited 8 off spaces from Geneva, Bern, Basel, and Zurich that under the project name CART came together for the first off space rendezvous. Art as a form of communication is not bound by traditional art spaces or skills. Today, self-organization also means making use of the wide range of media, working in a multimedia-based way, and self-organization also implies a different understanding of the public. Art in public spaces is not supposed to be an embellishment, but a positioning, intervention, and event. Personal initiatives, self-sufficiency, and independent activity outside of the institutionalized art world are particularly important elements here. In a period in which the art market is characterized by financial and structural problems, such activities are of particular significance to the development of alternative production. Exhibitions, communication systems that can make an important contribution to the extension of existing structures in the art world. I like this one quite a lot. No fee is what's the matter. But Ben, look at it this way. It's all idealistic as well. Blah blah art. Blah 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 passion. Blah 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 underground. Testing new forms. Blah 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 group spirit. Ideal play. Blah blah blah. Let's first see how many visitors come. Unprofessional, provincial, rubbish. You push through the crowds and suddenly stand in front of a roaring muscle machine and a guy dancing wildly in black. So it's art. Fresh art from the region. Projection, installation, object, sculpture, drawing, painting, brushed onto the window, pieces of paper attached in the air, bar constructions, and the recognition that one's own expectations play no role here. Where is the price list? Who is the gallerist? Gallery, no, project space, off space, off space. The proof, no white wine. If I had thought about money, I would never have founded an off space. And then most polemical, my contribution to these little sound bites, and cynical, I should say, is the off space is not just a failure, but a harmful illusion. Yes. So.